please announce the guidelines for interpretation for this.
Yes, hello, thank you. Good afternoon. We are Priscilla and Lorena, and we will be providing simultaneous interpretation services for the meeting today. You can access the interpretation services by clicking the globe icon in the bottom of your Zoom screen and then selecting either English or Spanish. Everybody should select a language. And we do ask that when speaking, please be mindful of our simultaneous interpretation, to speak slowly and clearly, and to try to avoid interrupting or speaking over another speaker. We will signal you with the raise hand symbol on Zoom if you are speaking too fast and need to slow down. We will signal you by turning on our cameras if you need to speak and enunciate clearly. And please pin us on Zoom so that you can identify us as your interpreters. Thank you for keeping the interpretation services in mind while conducting and participating in the meeting. And your assistance is very much appreciated. Now, Priscilla will say the same message in Spanish.
Buenas tardes a todos, somos Lorena y Priscila y vamos a ser sus intérpretes en la reunión de hoy. Pueden acceder a los servicios de interpretación haciendo clic en el icono con forma de globo en la parte inferior de sus pantallas de Zoom y seleccionar inglés o español. Todos deben seleccionar un idioma. Les pedimos que cuando hablen tengan en cuenta la interpretación y que lo hagan de forma clara y lenta y eviten hablar encima de otro orador. Vamos a utilizar la función de levantar la mano si están hablando rápido o encenderemos nuestras cámaras si necesitamos comunicarnos con ustedes. Pueden fijarnos en sus pantallas de Zoom para identificarnos como sus intérpretes. Gracias por tener en cuenta los servicios de interpretación mientras conducen y participan en esta reunión. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorena and Priscilla. Please raise your hand if our group here in person or online are speaking too fast. We want to be aware of, the time it takes to interpret. So please just give us a heads up, and someone, either Jackie or myself, will recognize you and we'll slow down. Okay, thank you. All right. Welcome to our online and in-person participants today. During the BHAB's general meeting, we value everyone's comments and input. Per BHAB members' request to streamline the agenda to allow everyone to be heard and to end on time, as we move forward, there will be a few new changes. This month brings the new change, the first change to the agenda, and that is that we will no longer have 2 roll calls. Therefore, during the first roll call, would you please announce your attendance here and follow with your appointed by Supervisor Long and your affiliation, please, if you have. So thank you. I think that'll be our first step in helping to streamline and cut down the time. So Jennifer, would you like to call the roll, please?
Yes, I would. Claudia Armand.
Not here yet. I have not heard that she's not going to be here.
Soledad Bergon.
Okay.
Nancy Butcher, is that on screen? Nancy, are you using Just Cause or emergency?
Oh, did you want me to say I'm here? I didn't think it mattered if I was here or not. Because it doesn't count, does it?
Using an excused absence. Just cause or an emergency? No?
No.
Okay. Okay.
She's here.
Okay. Kevin Clarisi is not, there he is. Are you using just cause or emergency?
Yeah, I'd like to use the just cause today. I had a procedure this morning that prevented me from driving. Kevin Clarisi, I represent District 1 on the BHAB, and I also chair the Youth and Family Committee. Thank you.
James Espinosa. Genevieve Flores Haro.
Present, Genevieve Flores Haro, District 1, appointed by Supervisor Ratliff here, and I'm on the Reducing the Service Committee. Thank you.
Cheryl Heitman.
Yes, I'm here.
Sorry.
Do you want to?
District 1, Cheryl Heitman, and I'm also a member of the family committee, and I'm a clinician.
CJ Kiwi,
Yes, hi, CJ Keating, District 2, appointed by Supervisor Parks, a member of the TAPE Committee.
Supervisor Matt Lemire. Supervisor Lemire may be attending on Zoom. He has time. He is on company business though, so government business. So he would, if he does attend, he would have a just cause. absence. Nomi Marufa.
Naomi Maruko, appointed by Kelly Long. I also work with Spirit of Santa Paula.
Diane McKay.
President, I'm Diane McKay. Was appointed by Supervisor Gorell for Area 2, and I'm on Youth and Family.
Myself, Jennifer Morrison. I am District 4 for Supervisor Pardon. I am an advocate, a family member, and I'm on the Adult Services Committee. Sean Pusey. Dahlia Rodkin.
Here appointed by Supervisor Kevin, District 4, and I'm in a transitional community.
Michael Rodriguez. Michael's out of town. Elizabeth Stone.
Present, I was appointed by Supervisor Clark. I'm a person who identifies as being diagnosed, being voluntarily hospitalized with 3 suicide attempts, currently second vice chair of on the executive committee, chair of the TAPE committee, coordinating a peer-led organization with state and county funding, and also worked for over 20 years on the clinical side.
Krista Hayden.
Hi, I'm Chris Ada of the 4th District. I'm the chair of the Adult Services Committee, a consumer and advocate. Thank you.
Marlon Torres. Liz Warren.
Here, good afternoon. I'm Liz Warren. I was appointed by Supervisor Carmen Ramirez. I represent District 5. I'm currently serving Supervisor Lopez. I am the executive director of the Client Network, which is a peer advocacy organization that is a contractor with BCBH. I'm a BCBH consumer / client for over 18 years, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Claudia Armand.
Claudia Orban, District 1 and family member.
And Janice Gardner. No. Janice Gardner, Prevention Care, BHAB Chair, and also appointed by Supervisor Long, previously by Supervisor Parks, and I'm the prevention. Okay, we have a quorum. We have one. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve today's July 17th agenda, please?
Move of the agenda.
Second.
Second, Cheryl Heidman. Are there any comments or changes to the agenda? Yes, that'd be great if that's okay with you. Okay, may I have so we have a second, and we have, may I have a request?
I'll change the motion. I move approval of the agenda with one change, which is to move our time certain presentation by District Attorney Mazarenko to now.
Actually, it will be, right after, just before chair comments.
Just before chair comments. Item number
That would.
right
9.
Okay.
That is our agrees.
I'm sorry?
I agree.
All right, can you call roll, please? Jennifer?
I will.
Thank you. Claudia Arman,
Yes.
Soledad Aragon,
Yes.
Nancy Borger. She voting? No, okay. Kevin Clarisi? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
James isn't here. Genevieve Flores Haro,
Yes. Yes.
Cheryl Heitman,
Yes.
CJ Keaveney,
Yes.
Nomi Maruko,
Yes.
Diane McKay,
Yes.
Jennifer Morrison, yes. Dahlia Robkin,
Yes.
Elizabeth Stowe,
Yes, as amended.
Krista Heda,
Yes.
Marlon is not here, right? All right. Liz Warren,
Yes.
and Janice Gardner. Yes. Motion is approved as amended. May I have a motion to approve June 26th minutes, please?
Jake Keaveney, a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second. Are there any changes, comments, or questions about the minutes, please? So would you please raise your hand? Okay. All right. Hearing none, would you do the roll call? Claudia Armand,
Yes.
Soledad Aragon,
Yes.
Kevin Clarisi,
Yes. Yes.
and Genevieve Flores Haro,
Yes.
Cheryl Heitman,
Yes.
CJ Keaveney,
Yes.
Nomi Maruko,
Yes.
Diane McKay,
Yes.
Jennifer Morrison, yes. Dahlia Robkin,
Yes.
Elizabeth Stone,
I'm gonna abstain.
Krista Heda,
Yes.
Liz Warren,
I'm abstaining, I wasn't in attendance.
Janice Gardner. Yes. Motion approved, or motion approved. Motion approved. Thank you. Are there any public comments from anyone online or in the group? Yes, sir. Would you like to, excuse me, would you like to come up and use your microphone? Jackie? Okay, if you want to. Please identify yourself and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
I am Don Cleveland. I am.
Sorry, press the red button.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Don Cleveland. I oversee Hillman House, MHRC, and Ventura CRT. And as some of you may know, that Ventura County Behavioral Health has been in partnership that's with us and trying to develop 120 bed locked MHRC down in Camarillo. Unfortunately, we did not get BHAB funding during the last round, which was quite disheartening. We felt like we had a very compelling package. Even more so when you compare us in Ventura to other neighboring counties and their capacity towards secure beds. That has not deterred us from building this facility. We have different plans that we're formulating now, one of which will be a phased-in model, where we'll start with a reduced number of beds, and then as we secure funding, we can build it out to its completion. What we are asking the public for is support wherever we may travel in trying to secure funding, and that could be private and public entities. More will be announced, I think, in the coming couple months on this. But I do want to elicit support first to the BHAB. We're a very important group here. And I think this is incredibly needed for the community. And the goal, I think, has been explained, is we want to bring everybody home. Right now, we have up to 80 people outside the county in locked facilities. This facility will solve that problem and then into the future. So Ventura County will no longer having to be sending folks as far up north as Delhi and as far south as San Diego. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're not, due to the Brown Act, we cannot comment on public comments, but I'm sure we can speak to you if you would like to remain or if you just need to. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. Now we have an appointment for a new member at large for a 6-month term. And Soledad Barragan has agreed to the appointment of member at large for a period of 6 months. For the bylaws, the BHAB needs to approve the appointment. So may I get a motion to approve?
1,000% approved
Thank
and
you.
move to have Soledad join us on the executive committee.
Thank you very much. Second by Claudia. Okay. I think we all. Jennifer, would you please call the roll? Claudia Armin? Yes. Soledad Verga?
Yes.
Kevin Clarisi?
Yes.
Genevieve Flores Haro?
Yes.
Cheryl Heitman?
Yes.
CJ Keeley?
Yes.
Nomi Maruko?
Yes.
Diane McKay? Yes. Jennifer Morrison? Yes. Dahlia Rompkin?
Yes.
Elizabeth Stone?
Yes.
Krista Hayda?
Yes.
Liz Warren?
Yes.
Janice Gardner? Yes. All right, congratulations. Thank you. Right. Next, I have a few chair comments, try not to be too long. Thank you for the confidence that you have given in electing me as chairperson. For some of our newer members, I did want to mention that I have previously served as chairperson. And since the inception of the BHAB in 2012. But I must say, and this is truly the truth, that this BHAB is the best membership we've ever had. So that's a long time, and I really believe that everyone here has the experience and the compassion that we need on the BHAB advisory board. So thank you. It's an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to serve as your steward and facilitator of the BHAB. I'm hoping the direction of this board will continue to be one of civility, professionalism, inclusiveness, and mutual respect. Each of us was appointed by our district supervisors to represent the community at large. For the state's Welfare and Institution Code, the acronym is WIC, W-I-C, and the BHAB bylaws, our board is tasked with representing the community at large, through advising, having specific oversight, making suggestions and recommendations regarding the community's behavioral health needs, working in collaboration with the department staff and the director of fulfillment. We can assist in, and I quote, promoting measures within the community that will help to prevent mental illness and or substance use challenges from becoming destabilizing components in the lives of all Ventura County residents. I look forward to working with each of you and serving the body of the BHAB as best I can. Next, we have the director's report. Director Gill. Oh, wait, excuse me, I'm sorry. We have our time certain. Oh, sorry, I was gonna, do you want me to introduce you? Or would you like to introduce yourself?
Go ahead.
Okay, we have District Attorney Eric Nasarenko, who's going to be giving us a mental health update, and he does have is it a PowerPoint?
I do.
Okay, he does have a PowerPoint. So thank you very much for coming today and taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to present to us.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be before the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. I want to thank you, Chairperson Gardner, for the invitation. Nice to see some familiar faces and to meet some new ones. What I'd like to do is give you an update on our mental health unit, as well as some of our key collaborative courts, specifically mental health diversion court, veterans court, and the Insights juvenile court wherein we seek to treat youth who have severe emotional disturbance, sometimes accompanied by substance use disorder, and give them a pathway to hope, rehabilitation, and treatment. Next slide, please. So this is our mental health unit. And I want to start here by letting you know that in the past, mental health cases were sprinkled throughout the district attorney's office. What I wanted to do is create a dedicated team of attorneys and professionals who would specialize in mental health cases. They would bring to this a level of engagement, training, and knowledge like we had seen before. And most importantly, they would come to this position with a desire to be in it. I wanted people to be a part of the mental health unit who wanted to be there, not who were forced to be there. So this is the unit led by Chief Deputy Rochelle Dean in the middle there. To her left, David Barnes. To the right of Rochelle, Jen Feldman, Chelsea Noble. And then at the bottom, seated, you have Jacqueline Sullivan, as well as Jacqueline Sheehan. They are assisted by our paralegal, Maria Rodriguez. Now, to give you a sense of this mental health unit, part of the mental health unit addresses civil commitments. Those people who committed some type of violent offense, they may have served their period of incarceration, but nevertheless, because of the level of dangerousness they still possess, they are deemed to be at risk to society. So on an ongoing yearly basis, we sometimes see civil commitment, that is to maintain them either in a state hospital or in a locked psychiatric placement facility. And I just want to mention something that you may not be aware of. We have authority under the Welfare and Institution Code to remove firearms from those who are hospitalized as a result of Welfare and Institution Code 5150 holds, etc. And I want to share with you how this manifests itself. When somebody is involuntarily hospitalized, their right to possess a firearm is taken away from them. But nevertheless, they may seek to have that right reinstated. What our deputies will do, Jen Feldman, David Barnes, and Chelsea Noble, is they will represent the state, California, in that hearing to say that this individual should not be permitted to continue to possess a firearm, that doing so would present an unlawful and undue risk to public safety. They have had 13 hearings since December of 2022, 12 of which the court found in concurrence with our team that the individual should not have their right to a firearm reinstated. I just want to make that known because I think it's very important in this context of red flag laws that we understand some of the enforcement of those existing red flag provisions. Next slide, please. So I talked about specialized training, that this unit would come to the position with enhanced understanding, knowledge, as well as best practices. Statewide mental health training. They have undergone treatment, they have undergone training and medication assisted treatment. They are part of the mental health committee of the California District Attorneys Association. They have undergone specific training in mental health diversion. They're also part of our monthly county stakeholder team. I see Director Gilman here. He and his staff are integral to that stakeholder team. They meet on a monthly basis along with probation, the courts, public defenders, and many others. And that last bullet right there, collaboration with mental health partners. It's so critical that this team understands who the players are in the treatment and rehabilitation communities. Who is Telecare? What is WellPath? What does Atascadero and Coalinga do? They are specialists in this area of law because one, they will receive in many cases a treatment plan. They need to be able to evaluate that treatment plan and understand who's going to be providing the treatment. Equally as important, they oftentimes receive placement plans, where this individual will be housed, where they will go. So similarly, this specialized mental health team can assess not only the level of care, but who will be giving it. Next slide, please. So again, to reemphasize the core mission is to protect the public, but also to offer diversion and alternative approaches where eligible and suitable. What is the ultimate goal here? To promote and protect public safety. I believe that we can reduce recidivism and provide better outcomes when we look at these individual cases from a holistic lens, including mental health treatment and rehabilitation. That doesn't mean we're going to compromise public safety. We have to continue to make sure when people pose a threat and they're a danger, that they are removed or incapacitated from society. But we also simultaneously need to be broad-minded, big thinkers, to understand there are a number of different pathways and approaches our attorneys can take. Next slide, please. So I want to begin with mental health diversion. This is a law that passed. It's actually in our penal code. It passed in 2018. It became law that summer. And in order for someone to qualify for mental health diversion, let me just walk you through the steps. Initially, they have to present with a mental health disorder as defined by the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. Schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, PTSD, bipolarity are among the most common ones we see. Secondly, there has to be a finding that that mental health disorder was an underlying cause of the crime they committed. There has to be some nexus between the disorder and the offense that they caused. Thirdly, they need to be amenable to treatment. They have to accept that treatment is a opportunity afforded to them. They have to waive their speedy trial rights in order to attain that opportunity. And they have to present, that is defense counsel, typically some type of treatment plan. There has to be some roadmap in terms of how they will be treated and how they will be rehabilitated. The defendant has to accept that treatment plan. And ultimately, there will be progress reports with the court wherein they will go before the judge or magistrate to show their level of compliance. But ultimately, we make recommendations, as do defense counsel and the public defender, but it is up to the judge. He or she will make the ultimate call whether or not somebody is eligible and suitable for mental health diversion. And they will ultimately have to make the call whether or not giving them diversion does or does not pose an unreasonable risk to public safety based on that individual's level of dangerousness. Next slide, please. So I just want to share with you, it's a very powerful statistic. Since December of 2018, 128 individuals have gone through this program, either successfully or unsuccessfully. And I'm proud to share with you that 89 have graduated successfully. That is a 69.5 diversion success rate. Diversion is working. It won't work in every case. I'm going to share with you an example of where it did not. But nevertheless, this is a legislative program that is helping to change lives, reduce incarceration, and also lower recidivism. It's also important to note, as indicated there at the bottom of the screen, that over 100 individuals are right now in the program, and many others, as we speak, are applying. Next slide, please. So I mentioned about personal, case anecdotes, 2 vignettes. The first is a success story followed by one that was unsuccessful. This is an individual who suffered from schizophrenia and general anxiety disorder. You can read there on the screen in July 2021, he led officers on a high-speed chase. The speeds got as high as 150 miles per hour. He was ultimately charged with possession of a weapon. It was a collapsible baton, and for evading that officer. He was accepted into the mental health diversion in December of 2021, and he was ordered to participate in telecare. Next slide, please. And it's always nice to report these kind of discharge statements. When he was discharged from telecare, he exceeded engagement with services and compliance. He continued his therapy. During his time in the mental health diversion, he was able to remain out of custody and continue to work. On June 13th, 2023, just last month, he was successfully terminated from mental health diversion early, and all of his charges were dismissed. It's important to just give you a sense of what diversion does. It basically holds prosecution in abeyance. If they fulfill all the terms and conditions of the diversion, they will suffer no prosecution. There will be no conviction, and whatever arrest they may have had will be sealed, and the case will be permanently dismissed. So it's a way for these individuals to get back on their feet and be contributing members of our Ventura County society. Now I want to share with you, just to make sure that you see both sides of the whole, a case in which mental health diversion was not successful. Next slide, please. So in this case, the defendant suffered from schizoaffective disorder and bipolarity. He stole a vehicle and a CHP officer attempted to stop him. He did not stop initially. Speeds got as high as 98 miles per hour. He was ultimately apprehended and charged with vehicle theft and felony evasion. Next slide, please. He initially was found incompetent to stand trial, and as a result of what we call IST, incompetent to stand trial, he was placed before the Department of State Hospitals, later restored to competency. But nevertheless, after being accepted into the Freedom House, he continued, unfortunately, to violate the terms of placement at the house. He failed to appear at multiple court hearings and was later arrested on different charges. Defendant was given another chance, but violated again, and he was ultimately removed from the program. We all know this line of work. It is hard. It is time consuming. Not every story is going to be a successful one, but that doesn't mean we don't try. We take each and every person one step at a time. So now what I'd like to do is I want to talk a little bit about veterans court. Next slide, please. So similar to mental health diversion, this is a creature of statute. It's actually contained within California law, again, the California Penal Code. And the basic premise here is if an individual served the United States military, and as a result of that service, they suffered a mental disorder. And again, similar to mental health diversion, if that mental health disorder is found to be contributing or one of the principal factors for the commission of the crime, they too can receive a treatment and rehabilitative model. Now, this is a little bit different in the sense that it can either be a diversion model where the prosecution is held in abeyance, or they can actually, in some cases, plead guilty, undergo intensive, rigorous probation and VA services, and then thereafter, upon completion, have the case dismissed. So in that scenario, usually for more serious felonies, the jail is what we call hung over their head. It is essentially to seek leverage to ensure their compliance with the program. Let me share with you just who's in charge of this program in our office. Next slide, please. So proud to present one of our senior deputy district attorney, David Barnes, who, as you saw from that second slide, is part of the mental health unit. But he's also a former Iraq veteran. He served in the United States Army for nearly 6 years. He also, interestingly, speaks fluent Arabic. And he's the type of individual who we want in the mental health unit because he has firsthand knowledge and experience in terms of interacting with soldiers, what they have gone through. And he also, frankly, can screen and vet the proposals, looking at it from both the prosecutorial lens as well as that of an enlisted service. Next slide, please. So we have in Ventura County Superior Court the Veterans Treatment Court, and it's named on behalf of the late former presiding judge of the Ventura County Superior Court, Toy White. Toy's there in the middle, surrounded by the veterans. It's now under the auspices of Judge David Hirsch, but it's a real rigorous, intensive, but collaborative program. Director Gilman, Ventura County Behavioral Health, Probation, Ventura's VA clinic, courts all have to work together And it's worth noting, these are voluntary in nature. We can't force a veteran to be part of it. They may be found ineligible or not suitable for the undertaking, but nevertheless, it's the collaboration, it's the interagency approach that makes it a success. So just to give you a sense of 2022 admissions. 121 applied last year, 72 were admitted. The balance between that 72 and 121, they either withdrew or they were refused entry by the court. Now, the next set of figures I'm going to share with you are going to be 2022 graduates. They're going to be a little bit different because remember, these are multi-year programs. So somebody may actually begin the program in 2020, but they may not graduate until 2022. So you can't simply look at the number that were admitted within 1 year and then see whether or not all of them graduated or were terminated unsuccessfully. But let me just give you a glimpse into how I believe this program is looking by the 2022 graduate figure. Next slide, please. So for 2022, 40 non-successful graduates. I think that's great. And only 8 unsuccessful ones. Again, kudos to David Barnes, Judge Hirsch, all the collaborative entities that made Veterans Court a success. Now, as I mentioned at the outset, I want to talk about a program that's run through our juvenile justice system, specifically in Oxnard at the Vineyard site, named on behalf of former jurist Steve Parent. And this is called the Insights Program. Oh, you know what, forgive me, before we do that, I just want to give you one case vignette about a successful mental health Veterans Court case. Next slide, please. So in this case, the individual was a former Marine. He was charged with a DUI after crashing his vehicle. He had, as you can see, there a high blood alcohol content, 4.6. He was evaluated. It was determined through his paperwork and the evaluation that he had a severe accident involving a machine gun exploding during its use while in combat. After he left the Marines, his marriage ended. He was diagnosed with depression, attempted suicide twice. And as you can see there, he had been placed on multiple 5150 holds as a result of the danger to himself or others. Next slide, please. So again, a success story. He was accepted into the diversion program. He was assigned a treatment plan. It integrated combat focused counseling with SEDS, substance use treatment disorder help. And he never missed a session and successfully completed DUI classes and mental health treatment with perfect attendance. One of the factors that makes this so rigorous and intensive is they are subject to drug testing and they are subject to searches. So that's one way, obviously, to make sure that they're in compliance with the terms and conditions of their brand. But again, he is sober today. He continues to take his medications and his therapy through the VA is successful. So as I mentioned before, next slide, please. This Insights program, I'm very excited about this. And Director Gelman, he is such an integral part of this, as are the men and women of his department. Mental health diversion, I call the big 5. That's who makes that possible. I call Insights the big 7, because these are youth. These are individuals who are still, in many cases, of school age. They may have truancy issues. They may have difficulty attending classes, staying on task. So you have on the Insights program a partnership with the Ventura County Office of Education, specifically Dr. Morales and his staff. We also have the Ventura County Public Health Department, again, the public defender, behavioral health, probation, the courts, as well as ourselves. This program, incidentally, goes up to age 21. So it picks up some of the transition age youth that I heard mentioned earlier. And what this, next slide, please. As I mentioned before, it treats individuals with severe emotional disturbance or substance use disorders or co-occurring, that is both. And it engages in one-on-one counseling, MAP, medication assistance, drug testing, case management, It is a very, very rigorous program. And since 2019, 79 youth have been served by the program. In the last 4 years, we hope to have more. This is a successful model. Some people frankly will fail. It will be too intensive. It will be too rigorous. But a couple factors that I want to share with you that I believe are helping to make this a success. One, the program provides transportation on behalf of the youth and the family. They may not be able to get there on their own, but they can certainly, through insights, get assistance in terms of travel. Two, when they have their case management, their court sessions, there are snacks. There's something for the youth to enjoy and to be a part of. It seems modest, it seems simple, but little things like that to a 14, 15-year-old really can make a difference. And the other thing is, this program recognizes and values that it won't be a success unless the parents, guardians, grandparents, cousins, uncles, aunts participate. It's not just the child, it's not just the youth, it's really the whole community that's supporting the program. So that is a crucial component. It's not just youth-centered therapy and counseling, it's also whoever is part of their support system and network. Next slide, please. For those of you who don't know, next week, NAMI Walks will have their kickoff. May be hard to go ahead and download a QR code and PowerPoint. I don't know if technology will allow that to happen, but nevertheless, flag that, go to the NAMI Ventura County site to find out more information. It's next Thursday, July 27th, from 6 to 8. And then next month, next slide, please, is the NAMI California 2023 conference. For those of you who are interested, the screen got a little cut off there. It says 3 days of education and advocacy for mental illness. The rally will be on the 23rd. This is going to be at Sacramento, incidentally, and then the next day, August 24th. And part of the reason I'm bringing this to your attention is not because I am a proponent and supporter of NAMI in addressing the destigmatization of mental illness. But next slide, please. I'm also one of its newest board members. This month, I became official. While I'm not on their website yet, I assume will be. I am now part of the NAMI California Board of Directors. So very excited to continue to serve and support NAMI and all of you. And I just want to go ahead and thank and acknowledge Lisa West. Many of you may have met with Lisa or had an opportunity to engage with her in 2021. She helped pilot and draft a report that looked at the mental health landscape in our office as well as throughout the county. That became kind of a working document for me and my staff. And while we didn't release it externally, I'm nevertheless grateful to her and the efforts that she undertook to help the office understand the whole mental health community here in Ventura County. So with that said, I'm happy to answer any questions. I want to thank all of you for the opportunity to just give you a snapshot of what we're doing in the office. I hope I'm able to do this again and share with you more graduates, more success stories. But I don't want to sugarcoat this. I don't want to kind of look at this with rose-colored glasses. These cases are hard. People fail, they loan out. They're unfortunately right now in Insights is not the success ratio that we would like, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to try. We have to bring knowledge, resources, attention to these cases, and we also have to be broad-minded. In some cases, we will have to go ahead and lock people up and incarcerate them, but in other cases, we have to be mindful that there are alternatives and dispositions that will value who they are and that will reduce recidivism in the long term by giving them treatment and help. Thank you all very much.
Thank you to District Attorney Masarenko for coming out and for this very informative report. We have 10 minutes for questions and answers from the people online or our BHAB members that are present also. So if anyone would like to ask Erica some questions or have information about it, would you please raise your hand?
I don't know. It was.
Thank you very much. I appreciated you giving us the overview and the update on the various things that are happening within your department. And I was not aware that there was dedicated mental health team within the DA's office. So that's good news. I understand they had training, but are any of them individuals with any clinical experience or any lived experience regarding mental health?
I don't believe so. It's a very valid question. They came to us and said, I want to be part of this unit. So that to me is kind of an important threshold that they've crossed already just by showing interest and eagerness. Lived experience, I don't know, probably not a question I could ask. And, you know, the training that they're receiving is given to prosecutors throughout the state through the California District Attorneys Association. But we also brought in, for example, someone from the LAS because they have a very strong and robust incompetence stand trial and reentry program. So we're learning from those individuals as well. But you know, what makes them so powerful is not just the fact that they're wanting to do it, but they're doing it together. Right? There's a lot of power in 4 people with a defined chief deputy overseeing them. They can cross-reference cases, they can draw on one another, and they can also really build connectivity with these clinicians, behavioral health specialists, and others that I think in the past were just looked at in a document and not really known through a personal relationship.
So I have a few more questions for you.
Please.
So what is the case ratio that they're all carrying?
That's a great question. I don't know, but I can find out. I don't want to give you the wrong number, but I will find out. And let me take notes because I think that's a very great question. And I'll let you know through Chairperson Garner.
Great, thank you. The other question I wanted to ask you is, it was my understanding that if an individual was charged with felony, they were not available for diversion mental health court. Is that still the case? I thought it was only misdemeanors.
No, you can receive mental health diversion through certain felonies. There are categories that are excluded from mental health diversion, but nevertheless, felonies are eligible for it.
Okay, so the other question I have, when you cited the vignette or the scenario where the individual unfortunately wasn't successful, the question that came to my mind is, so somewhere along the line, they fell through the cracks. So how are they being monitored while they're going through the 2-year diversion program or their probation? In other words, is your staff who's providing intensive, robust case management following them through the diversion process? Because it sounds like they didn't have that relationship with a traditional case manager.
It's a great question. We're not actually doing the monitoring, VA's office. So depending on the scenario, it could be a member of the Veterans Administration who's doing the case management, the monitoring. Most likely, in the majority of cases, it's going to be someone with the probation. Probation, their task is monitoring and supervision. They will exercise the drug test supervisions, the searches, and suspension of Fourth Amendment rights. They will also, work with case management in terms of behavioral health and other nonprofit providers. We don't actually do the management. What we will find out about is whether or not they are in compliance or non-compliance through the progress updates through the court. So for example, on Veterans Court, there's a formal memorandum of understanding, an agreement with all the players at the table that requires the progress reports be brought before the court no less than every 6 months.
Okay.
So, we're learning, our prosecutors on the mental health team, what is happening with those cases through the court process. And also, frankly, what will happen is they have attorneys that represent them. Those attorneys will send us documentation. They're in compliance. This is where they're getting their medication assisted treatment. This is how many NA or AA classes they've done, and this is where they're doing them. Here's where they're going for their outpatient therapy. So there's correspondence because it's a unit between the entity that's representing the defendant, between the prosecutors.
Okay, so 2 last comments. Why would someone be denied?
There can be a number of factors. One could be they may just not be eligible. For example, it could be a drug under the influence, which is not diversion eligible. the vast majority of domestic violence cases are not diversion eligible. That's statutory, that's in the law. Or the court may find, you know what, I don't see a sufficient nexus, a sufficient underlying connection between the disorder and what caused the crime. Or ultimately, as I mentioned, the court may say it's too great a risk. The level of dangerousness is too high for this person not to go through the formal process.
Okay, so as a consumer advocate, I'm gonna wrap it up. As a consumer advocate, who works in the world of recovery, I would just, recommend that when you're talking about individuals that are going in and out of, diversion court, that the utilization of recovery language is used. So something like, and I know this is hard because in your world, the vocabulary is different. So saying someone's in compliance is part of what you would say, as opposed to somebody who's following a treatment plan. So as you move forward and work with your staff, I think it would be good to get them educated on recovery language. Thank you so much.
Great questions. I will share that with them. Thank you.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Want to be aware of District Attorney Nasarenko's time. So do we have, okay, Elizabeth Stone and then Chris Cahill. So let's keep that in mind, please. 5 minutes, thanks.
Hi, your presentation actually raises tons of questions for me, which I will defer at this time, and I hope that we perhaps could have a further conversation. I would like to just mention one thing, two things, well, one thing and then a question. I know that I shared quite a lot of information with Ms. West about peer services, and peers seem to be really absent from your model. So I'd like to encourage you to investigate that, and perhaps that's also something we could talk about. And my second question is, I actually sit in homeless court with a number of people that are unhoused. And as we know, there's probably going to be an election, but I believe the political will is such that there's going to be major transformation in terms of funding and services for, and we already have Care Court Act that's very supported on the organization that you're now a board member of. So I'm curious how I was kind of hoping that maybe that would be included in part of this, because we know, I'm not saying that one is a precursor, that having a mental health or substance use diagnosis is a precursor, though we know people living outside and unsheltered will also develop symptoms that could be diagnosable because of the trauma of being outside. So I just hope, I'd like to hear more about that, especially since we know 30% of the MHSA funds will be going toward housing. So thank you.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I just want to validate and acknowledge your premise. One is, I agree with you. We do need more individuals with lived experience to inform our decision making. And I remember Lisa putting that first and foremost in the report. So it's not lost on me. I want you to know I'm hearing what you're saying. And that's something that's very important to me. I could do a whole hour on CARES court, Dr. Gilman and I and Dr. Johnson and Dr. Zimmerman, we all met along with others. And, it's an important topic, but obviously just not enough time on your agenda. With respect to homelessness and mental health, one of the most persuasive studies that I've seen, and I want to preface this by saying I only read the executive summary, not the entire report, was the one that was put out a couple of weeks ago by the University of California. Because it talked to over 3,000 people in that lived experience model. So I just want you to know that that's something that I have read, the executive summary only, not the whole thing. I plan to at some point, because the intersectionality of homelessness, mental illness, addiction, with housing, food, and trauma and insecurity is huge. We all want the same thing. You can give somebody 10 days in jail, or you can go ahead and give them a better future through programmatic housing services cases. I have to just sort of focus on what I have direct jurisdiction and authority over, but I just want you to know, homeless court, I once served as a prosecutor for a couple of years when I first began my career. I think it's a great program. For those of you who don't know about it, it allows people, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, They can't get a license. They have no money to pay back fines and fees. So let them do community service. Let them work on behalf of an organization, a faith-based group, and in exchange, show proof of such. And we'll go ahead and we'll delete the fines and fees so they can get back on their feet and their life can hopefully return to some semblance of normalcy. I will continue to be a proponent of that program. I think it's huge. I could go on and on. So I'm going to ask you, Elizabeth, reach out to my office. I know you have more to share with me, but thank you very much.
Thank you. I also wanted to ask if anyone would like to reach out to District Attorney Nasarenko via email, would that be possible?
Absolutely.
And it would be great if your questions or your concerns or your interests, if you could CC myself and Jackie so that we as a board can hear your voice and understand what your questions are and how they're responded to. If that, if that agrees with everyone. That'd be great. I know. And now, Chris, go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you, District Attorney Nasarenko. I could go on all afternoon about how great your program is and everything you're doing, and I've gone through the diversion program, and it really is a great program, for people that want the outcomes and want to go through it. And I can't go on enough about it, so I'll stick to a couple other things. One was as far as the plan development that has to be put together for people to get through the mental health diversion program. And there's a lot of factors that go into it. So I would hope that it's accessible for all members of the community, because I know it's quite resource intensive, and I would just hope that all members of the community are able to go through that or have that as an option. The other thing is clients, if they can be evaluated as soon as possible in the process, as soon as in custody, that would be great. I think the increase in WellPAC staff has really helped facilitate that, as well as the sheriff's office and what they're doing in intake. A couple other things are the misdemeanor and felony. They have an equal level of intensity for what they have to go through. It's just that one is 1 year program, the other is a 2-year program. So that would be something that would be, I think, would be good to be reflected in that, that it's resource intensive as well, right? You have to go out to probation for drug tests out in Oxnard. Maybe you have your house, you have to have, you have to have inspections and things like that. So all of that said, I would just hope that this plan and everything that's put in place is accessible to everybody. And then lastly, what you mentioned with insights and the transportation provided to youths, if that could be extended to people in mental health diversion, as well as people in the other programs, because you have people, and myself, I was out in East County, out there in Moore Park, and to get from Moore Park to Oxnard, I was lucky to have resources available, but I know a lot of community members don't. So just things like that. And I will certainly be following up an email, and I appreciate everything you're doing. I can't say enough good things about it. So, thank you.
Grateful, Chris, and please call me Eric. I want to acknowledge what you said at the outset, which is whether or not you are indigent, or whether or not you are a means, whether or not you're a PPO insured, or whether or not you're a Medi-Medi, it should be the same. Absolutely. And to the transportation point, 100%. I mean, oftentimes the biggest barriers are the ones that we take for granted and overlook each and every day, which is just getting there. And I know Supervisor Parlins, Supervisor Gorell, and others, they really want to bring more services to the East End, and I do too. So I want to acknowledge that. And your point's a very valid one about diversionary periods, because I didn't mention that at the outset. For those of you who are kind of looking at this diversion landscape, it's a 24 months for felonies, 12 months for misdemeanors. So that clock is moving, which is why you need support, services, and intervention as quickly as possible. So follow up with me, Chris, with great points.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the time we have. Let's thank District Attorney Nasarenko, Eric, for his. And now we have the judge's report.
Thank you.
And again, thank you, District Attorney, for your support of our programs and of me. In the coming months, you'll also be hearing a great deal about how District Attorney's Office is really championing and leading the way as we look at our fentanyl crisis. That we have, and it's a whole nother topic, that we have to deal with. So I have just gotten back from vacation and I found my office this morning. So my report will be a little bit more verbal. There's a pretty thick packet here of information that we put together for you. I want to note that we also added additional information in the packet on contracts. We had some questions on contracts and thought just put some of the summary information in there so that was at the back. There's no expectation that you read every word of that. Some of you were very interested in contracts and the level of analysis that we do. So we've added that. I also want to let you know, we talked extensively in executive committee about the governor's proposal to modernize Mental Health Service Act dollars. And the proposal came out, which we had been expecting all along, and there had really not been much in writing that had come out. There was PowerPoints that staff had, but when the two bills were introduced and came out, we all discovered that it's really far, far more reaching than what anybody had even imagined in their, I won't say worst nightmare because it's not all that. There's some really good stuff in there. But things, for example, like adding substance abuse. We wanted to be able to suspend substance use or to use MHSA dollars for individuals that suffer with SUD issues. That's included. Unfortunately, there's no new money. And so the theme that you'll hear as I go through my comments about MHSA reform, it's really about I think some of the unintended consequences of reforming a bunch of red tape that we all agree needs to happen. There's two bills. One of them was introduced by our own local Jackie Irwin, and that particular bill focuses in on a bond, passing a bond, taking it to the ballot in March, and asking the voters to approve a bond measure that would expand 10,000 beds statewide. And these would be unlocked beds the way that it's structured at this point. So I don't think there's much disagreement in the world that our system is log jammed because we have lack of beds, lack of lower level beds. I've sometimes said we really don't need how many inpatient lock beds we need because we really don't have sufficient step down at this point to move people through. And so this is a really great step in the right direction. And so we really appreciate her efforts to move that forward. The other bill, 396, has a lot more meat on the bones than what we anticipated and does things like really turns MHSA money, rules and regulation into Medi-Cal. So on one hand, that's great because it's nice to have one set of rules that you have to follow. But on the other hand, it takes a pot of money that could be very flexible for us, as a state to use, and really imposes a lot of data reporting requirements and restrictions that we hadn't imagined, as we go forward. I think probably the most significant unintended consequence is that, and this was, the governor talked about this from the beginning, was the deprioritization of prevention, early intervention dollars. And so for us, that's about $11 million a year that we spend on programs like our wellness centers in the schools, Legrando, the 23 contracts that we just put out for early intervention prevention services. Essentially, the way that the new allocations work is we will be moving, if it passes by the voters, and whatever goes to the voters yet remains to be seen. I need to preface all of this by saying we have a minute before it goes to the voters, and then the voters have to approve it. But $30 million would be transferred from our current programs into housing. And so for some of the areas, like some of our treatment programs, that's pretty catastrophic. That's some pretty big dollars to shift around. Other areas where we would be increasing, for example, would be we would need to go
goes like it's written, about triple our full service partnership services. And so, you know, it shifts from lower level care, puts big focus in on full service partnerships. The PEI dollars would go, you know, essentially go away into, and the early intervention dollars would all be clustered into this one new little pot of money that would also include substance use, and more of a population health than an individual prevention. All of this will be coming out soon writing, in the very near future. We've been holding back on pushing things out in writing until, the California, the Association of Counties put out their talking points, and our association put out talking points, and there's stuff that's flowing out now, you know, that we'll be able to share with you. And more importantly, we want to be specific about what our ask is when it comes to the legislative activity. I think if there was a whole limitless pile of money that went along with this, we probably wouldn't be so concerned, you know, about some of it. But starting right out of the gate with adding a whole brand new population, substance use population with high needs and no more money, you know, that's just a shell game for cuts in other places. And so that's probably the biggest concern. Again, good stuff here, holding insurance companies, you know, the commercial insurance world to the fire, holding their feet to the fire. We've run into situations frequently where people who have great cards for insurance and they don't cover specialty mental health benefits, and kids in school, folks that have insurance trying to get services. So the bills do go after some of that stuff. It changes the way the oversight of MHSA would be handled. It folds it into a state department, eliminates the statewide commission. There's comments about our board and conflict of interest. It really goes into detail about many things, so that it's not really MHSA reform. It's really a good, it's a good snapshot of lots of things that the state wants to do in directions that they want to go. One of the questions that I've asked, and I asked someone Erwin when we met, was, does it all need to be attached to this bill? There's so many things. There's even things in there that would address the employment code for individuals, you know, that might be displaced or want to access information for airports and things. So it just goes in all kinds of rabbit holes. That's one of the reasons why it's taking us so long to get information out to you, is that it is extensive reform. And also the way that the bill came out was, it wasn't strike out with red and here's the new word. It was entire pages would be removed and then new pages would go in. So our lobbyists, our legislative staff, folks that have to go through and analyze this stuff, it took them a minute to go through and line everything up. When you're talking 181 pages of stuff, you know, that came out. So, but that process is pretty much completed. The other good news is we know that we need more housing, you know, for individuals. My fear is taking $30 million and shoving it over to housing right out of the gate when we don't have housing available, you know, for folks. We need to build, we need to find, and we don't want to set ourselves up for a situation where we're lapsing money back because we can't get it out. And the housing dollars that we all are already seeing a ton of red tape attached to the housing dollars in the bill. So modernization, making things easier, probably not hitting the mark on that. The last thing I just want to say about this one is that Legislative Affairs Office in California, it's called, okay. They just came out with a position statement with some questions and we're, yeah, so you may have all already seen that, but they're calling some pretty big questions on the administration. Like there's really not a good enough justification for why we're even doing this. So it's probably the biggest topic that we're going to have to face, you know, as we go through. We thought we would say that about Kelling. We thought we would say that about our electronic health record. We thought we'd say that about the new jail waiver. You know, on and on it goes. But this one is big. The last another financial impact, and then I'm gonna move on, is we need to come up with matching dollars to spend Medi-Cal. So the way that, just a brief 101 on how we spend Medi-Cal. In order for us to spend $1 of Medi-Cal, we have to have $1 of match to spend that out of local dollars. And MHSA is a big source of our local match to essentially send up to the federal government to get our 50% back. Our new calculations are, we went from a situation where we really didn't have a lot of trouble meeting our match requirements to, we may have trouble even pulling in our federal dollars. So that's really bad news, but it's also really good news, because it's really easy to sit down with the lawmaker and say, we're going to leave federal dollars on the table because you've done this. We won't be able to spend, millions and, well, billions statewide if we don't have the matching dollars. So those are easy points to make, but we have a long way to go, and we're going to need everybody's voice, at the table. I've also heard some groups are very concerned about all of the beds being unlocked in Assemblywoman Irwin's shop. So there is a belief that there's not enough locked beds, and wouldn't this be an opportunity to address that as well? And so those are areas that there'll be public hearings on, there'll be debate, but all in very short order. So and we'll keep you as updated as we can as this stuff is happening. Originally, it was going to go in November. Now it's going to go in March, and so it's a fast track as we go. And so let me just stop on that big thing, and I'll take a few questions. But I also want to say, speaking with the chair, there's so many things happening right now in our world between CalAIM, payment reform, that we're going to schedule even some special meetings. We're looking at how best to do that, so that I can really do like an overall presentation to you all, and not try to squeeze it into 10 minutes, but really, and then align some of that stuff that's happening, because it's stressful, and there's a lot of really good stuff that's happening. We're redesigning our front door right now, for example, to speed the amount of time that it takes for people to get in, something that a lot of advocates have been after us to do for a long time. Well, now, thanks to CalAIM and some changes that were made there, we're moving full steam ahead on that. So we will be looking at how we can not violate the Brown Act, have members of the public there, but really spend some time going through all of the things that are happening from CalAIM all the way to the current MHSA. I think I'll end my comments there, because the report is very detailed this time. I want to thank the staff that helped with that, while I was going, and just take any questions you have.
I just want to say, thank you very much, Dr. Gilman, for your report. And yes, Dr. Gilman and I did talk about possibly in August sometime doing a town hall versus a BHAB meeting, so that we will not, we can invite public and we can invite individual BHAB members and not be in violation of the Brown Act. But we will get back to you. We're asking. Party. So anyway, we'll get back to everyone and give you enough notice so that we can arrange that, and also it would be in the early evening, so that we can get as many folks as we can there, and Director Gilman and his staff, or whomever you would like to speak, we talked about CalAIM, all the changes that, as far as he knows, right? So thank you very much. Questions? Diane.
Thank you very much. This sounds a lot like education funding, where it's a shell game where there's winners and losers. Just that. My one concern is when you talked about the new data collection and how expensive that would be, because that also sounds like administrative costs and new people that we're taking out of being able to serve people to fill out in all the bubbles and dollar numbers. That's a little frightening to me. So we're actually taking more away from services. And so as we look at, adding substance abuse, losing money, and these winners and losers, I guess it will have this town hall so that we have the right details to talk about.
Exactly, yeah, and I say that, but you'll have it before the town hall. We prepared talking points as late as last week. that we're circulating to get, to get all approved. We have to be in lockstep with, with the county, because we're going to need to have the power, the full power of the county behind this as we go forward. We have to be in lockstep with the county anyway, right? But our county has been so supportive of behavioral health over the years that this is time that we really need to bring them up to speed and have them help us as well. So the exact numbers, and as exact up-to-date information as we have it, the horse trading has started, already. And so there has been good movement on some areas. And
Yeah, I think like prevention and housing are the two biggest things, and to take from one route from one for the other, just.
Yeah.
We all do that.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I'm just gonna check this. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hello. Has there been any discussion about bringing the tiny house program to the church?
not that I've been involved with, I'm very familiar with it, but not that I've been involved with.
Thank you. Right. Oh, yes.
Scott, great presentation. Are you seeing any monies out there for withdrawal management and addiction recovery? I know you mentioned fentanyl, and what, if anything, is coming down the pipe to support those endeavors?
Yeah, great question. Appreciate that, because I really missed that. Part of the analysis has to be, we can use federal dollars for services, and we can bill for things that we never could bill for before. And so as we take mental health services dollars away and use them for housing, we can backfill with things like enhanced care management, or expanding our peer support services. And on drug medical, continuing to expand the services, that we have now. One of the waivers is an integration waiver that's coming up. We can talk about that, when we do our presentation. But essentially, if you move in the direction the state wants you to in this waiver, which is to bring mental health and substance abuse red tape together, contracts, performance indicators, all of that stuff, that you can begin to use some new codes for billing and generate revenue, essentially. So we're optimistic that some of these losses will be offset by revenue. It does put a burden on some of us and some of our nonprofit partners and providers that productivity will matter as we go forward. As we move into that world from things that are funded with MHSA to where we will have new opportunity to generate new revenue on a fee-for-service basis. It's a little bit different. But there is opportunity, yes, to answer your question.
Okay, okay. Okay, we're almost out of time, so let's, okay, we'll have Elizabeth and then Cheryl, and then we'll wrap it up, okay?
Thanks. I'm glad you kind of ended where you did, because that's kind of where I stand on this, having read the bill very extensively. It's very concerning statewide, attending state level meetings. There's a lack of accountability because we're not doing outcomes data. We're doing process data, not outcomes data. That's part of it. And you cited 15% productivity with contract holders. That's very, very concerning. So I think that's some of the motivation for this. And there is this very brief window where the feds are paying 80% instead of 50% for Medi-Cal and Medicaid, right? So, and so, there's so much political will behind it. I need for us to kind of take the stance of being resistant when we might end up with it. And instead, I really encourage people to look for the opportunities for maximizing revenue. The waivers are for billing for promotoras, for community health workers, for peer service. There's multiple new billing categories. So it's moving to fee for service instead. So there's a lot of opportunities, and the housing is meant to be braided with HUD housing for infrastructure and supportive services, which is actually what, this, permanent supported housing is 50% the building, 50% services to keep people housed. right? So that the service side is what's being taken, not making the buildings. So they're trying to really leverage all these different, this is my understanding of it, I've been attending a lot of the things I mean. It's really, you know, leveraging and integrating grading funding to address this concern of lack of accountability for outcomes and, you know, kind of perhaps less than desirable productivity.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, Cheryl.
Yeah, thank you, and I'll make it quick. I'm hoping, I love the idea of a workshop, or as you said, whatever form, but I think that's really important for us, but I think my recommendation would be to follow it up with action items, some things that we as a board can do, because I think we do have a voice that can be powerful, and many of us have good connections politically with legislative members, etc. So don't forget to use us in that way, because I think that could be powerful.
Thank you. Thank you, definitely.
Thanks for that comment. Yes, we can write board letters of support. I know that we've been asked to support a couple of things, so we can do that, and you know, we can all create it, talk about it. Someone can take the lead on it, draft something, you know. No reason we can't. That's one of the reasons we're here. Thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda. Okay, our board member comments. Claudia.
I recently attended a town hall that Steve Bennett held. It's specifically for the nonprofit sector. And he went through a series of laws that are in consideration in Sacramento now to make contracting between nonprofits and the state go more smoothly. And these laws all came about from feedback that the nonprofits had, and they included like more multi-year grants, paying for the grant being paid 25% upfront, so the organization doesn't have to expend dollars they haven't gotten from the state, and also shifting away from limiting overhead to cover full cost of services. And so with great response from the nonprofits. We'll see if these go through, but I just was thinking about how county contracts and what conversations there are about shifting things so they kind of work better for the nonprofits. And then just going back to what was just asked about the tiny homes, I recently toured this tiny home project in Santa Barbara, where the county gave a parking lot and they built these tiny homes. It's an organization that works in various cities in the state. It was so successful that the county said, we're going to give you land in Santa Maria. We're going to give you some land in Goleta. And even the Goleta City Council said, you can use our parking lot to build more. So it's such a good model because you can get things built really quick because they're sort of temporary. They're not like totally permanent. And also because the hardest thing to get is land, and here's the government providing the land.
Great, thank you for that information. Is there another? Oh, yeah, go ahead. This?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was on a comment on tiny homes. So I had a conversation with Susan Whitewood, who heads up our housing with the department. And she's taken a look at tiny homes, and she said that actually, if she gets a bigger bang for her buck, not using the tiny homes model. And a lot of that has to do with having to connect to county infrastructure like sewer lines, electricity. And so I just think it would be great maybe to have her come and make a presentation and talk about her thinking of weighing tiny homes versus housing dollars and how she thinks they should be spent, and maybe looking at a larger stakeholder process. But I want you to know that some of the things that she shared.
Okay, thank you for that. And we do have a director of housing, not a director, but someone with Susan, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yes, yeah, yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. I didn't have any.
Okay, yes.
Sorry. All right, thank you for your board comments. Before we, okay, Elizabeth.
Hi, I just would like to go on the record as we start our new term as a new executive committee, that we maintain a commitment to this board being a place to kind of host and facilitate the community rather than kind of people, well, I'm just gonna leave it in positive terms. And so, toward that end, I really hope that we consider moving meetings toward the evening, at least every other month. I know many of the boards across the county, across the state, have their meetings in the evening, so I'd really like us to revisit that again in the name of being as inclusive and inviting as possible. Also, many other boards have term limits. And I think that that could be very helpful in terms of, with all the changes going on with services and new models. I just kind of want to be explicit and put out there that those are some things I'm thinking about that are like other people to think about. And I'd also like us to review the manual. Because I know that those materials, when I got them many years ago, were outdated then. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Were you talking about the administrative manual or the bylaws?
I think the book that's given to people as orientation. Okay, because a lot of those materials are outdated and some people, I think it would be helpful that there's a substantial orientation, especially supporting people with direct lived experience in terms of their rights and possibilities for participation in the board. And also how people that, part of that is making space for people who may not be accustomed to some formal norms. And so how we kind of navigate that space so that everyone feels welcome and not harmed by procedures. Not saying that you have, but we know that happened previously.
Thanks, Elizabeth. All right. All right, before we go on to the secretary's report, Jennifer, I would like to introduce our Assistant County Counsel, Martha Newsom. And so we appreciate your attending, and she is going to keep us on track as far as legislative and county policy is concerned. So I just want to introduce you and say thank you for coming today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure and honor to help all of you with this great work.
Thank you. Okay. Secretary's report, Jennifer.
Hello, everybody. I want to say thank you for your patience with me during my first BHAB meeting as your secretary. Jackie, it doesn't look like the secretary's report is in the packet, so can you send it out to everybody? So I think I'm gonna just let everybody know that we still have an opening in District 2 for Supervisor Burrell's office, and the agenda is going to be.
Here it is.
Oh, it is in
Is
there.
that July's?
Is it July?
It's after the chart.
Oh,
Thank you.
I know, I was gonna say, I know I read it online, but.
all right. So
All right, well, I will just give a few announcements. There's a few articles that I highlighted in the secretary's report with hyperlinks. So if you'd like to go on and read about those, please do so. But I did get some information from Project Understanding, located in Ventura. They have increased its pantry by 1,000%, serving 260 per month to over 4,400 per month. They're also placing individuals in sober living, shelters, and housing when there are openings. But that was important to get out, and very important. Supervisor Carvin's office has advised that they have found a location for the CSU, for the Crisis Stabilization Unit, and they will be moving forward with that, and there will be an update next month.
thank you. Are there any comments or questions about the secretary's report? And it is, oh, yes, okay. It is in the, thank you, Jackie. She never misses a beat. It is in the, toward the end of our, or in the middle, actually.
Yeah, it's right in the middle. There's all this stuff at the end that was provided for us by the contract, so it will come.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer. Great job. Thank you. All right, next we have our Adult Services Committee presentation. Chris?
Hi, thank you. I'll keep this update brief. We did not reach a quorum, so it was technically an informational meeting. But but we're able to have Ronna Bright from the Stepping Up Initiative provide a presentation on their efforts, and is very informative. And because we don't have a quorum, I did receive the slides, so I believe I could distribute those as an information. So I'll go ahead and do that.
You can give them to Jackie and she'll distribute them.
Oh, perfect. Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, so it's very informative. It's their efforts are to help people that are in the jails get linked to services before they're discharged from jail. They have a very difficult task ahead of them because a lot of times they can't control when people are going to be released and that sort of thing, but they are improving their screening methods, and they're starting to collect data that's from a set that they previously didn't have access to. So in the next few months, we're going to get just more good data from them. So that's good news. And then Dr. Schipper presented a presentation of decentralization of STAR, which is they're redoing the front door and how clients are going to be accessing STAR. And it seemed very interesting. It was people would call to the same number and the same access point before, but from the point of their phone call, they're going to be referred to a treatment location or a facility that they could go to be evaluated or even receive psychiatric medication the same day. So it opens up, it shuts down the long 2+, 3+, 4+ week of getting seen and getting assessed, because previously, before they're able to be billed, they had to be diagnosed, I believe, with an SMI diagnosis. So through the changes in the policy, we're able to provide services for sooner. So it's all very good and very positive, and it was great because at the adult services, we got to provide feedback and just have a good discussion of what's available, how we would like to see it maybe. So those are my updates. I'll keep them brief. Again, we didn't reach a quorum, but I'll remind everybody coming our next adult services meeting so that we can hopefully meet that quorum. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You always have such a comprehensive report. Just enjoy it very much. Did Dr. Schipper have a PowerPoint or was it all verbal?
It was all verbal.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that update then. Liz?
Thanks, Chris. So I just want to make a comment because I've been a long time BCBH client. I received my psychiatric treatment through the department. And when I first started as a client, it was in 2002. And the way right now that Chief Schipper and Director Billman are looking at decentralizing STAR and getting folks to the facility, the clinic, starting treatment right away is exactly how it used to be. And it worked extraordinarily well. And I don't need to go into my initial exposure, but it was one of the fastest processes I've ever experienced within a mental health system. So it's almost like a full circle moment, and I'm excited about this because I've seen this work and I was a beneficiary of this. I mean, literally within 48 hours, I was hooked into services. And so I'm just very jazzed. So
Thank you.
It's great. It's one of those newbie things again, what we're deconstructing the front door, or what's that actually mean? I mean, we're not people, to me, I was like. Public works doing it, I mean, so I'm just curious, really what we mean by that.
Yeah, so when somebody calls for services historically, they would get a telephone screen and then they would be referred to STAR, which is basically think of it as an assessment team. And over time, that became a significant bottleneck for people. And equally as important, it's not very trauma informed because we're having people tell their story on the telephone. Then we're doing a complete biopsychosocial assessment that takes a lot of time before they get to medications or their therapist. Our old process was, and then after they got through that assessment with the STAR staff, they would be transferred in some cases to a clinic administrator who would be with them and figure out who would be the best therapist. You can see way too many steps, way too many retelling your story. The concept that our chiefs have come up with is called an urgent care concept, an urgent care model. So that whole process of that assessment goes away. Somebody is screened on the phone. They're determined to live in Ventura County, meet some of our criteria. They take some basic information, but then they're referred to the clinic, see clinicians and physicians, and each of the clinics will have their own. I mean, that'll be the model across all of our clinics, no pilots, but kids will be a little bit different, older adults maybe a little bit different. But the chiefs are working through all of that planning process right now with an August 7th implementation date that we're looking at. And so don't expect it to look different on August 8th. There's a backlog of people that we have to get through. We're also figuring what the key performance indicators should be so we can measure the success. One of them that Dr. Shipper has put out there is 50% of the people that come to us aren't with us after 1 year. And so things like that we could look at, where could we do a better job? Of course, the quicker is an easy one, but what are other things that we can look at that we can measure, to show that we're really making a difference in people's lives? So ideally, as Liz Warren said, somebody will call and they'll need to be evaluated, and they'll go right into whatever clinic we have. The other things that we're talking about are having peers in the waiting rooms, having to be more friendly, having more support, available for folks that are there. So, back to the future.
I like that it's trauma informed. It's a lot like what they did with the Family Justice Center for victims of violence, where there's one stop and you hang on to more people that way and get them served. So.
Thanks, Diane. Elizabeth, would you like to wrap us up with this?
Sure.
Subject?
So 2 quick comments. What I love about the model is partly facilitated by Callie, that it's now a problem list, not a diagnosis, right? So what's going on with you? And if it can be resolved in a couple of things and things resolve over time, it's great. So recovery informed, trauma informed. The other thing, Chris, was so disturbing to, I think, a couple of us with Rhonda's report stepping up, was the kind of lack of action. And her saying, I've been facilitating meetings, but I can't do anything. I just collect data, blah, blah, blah. So I actually printed out some reports from SAMHSA on sequential intercept, because that seems to be a block. So I'm going to share some of that with you. I'm also going to give a copy to Jackie on what SAMHSA suggests the data is collected for sequential intercept. So when they actually get around to doing that, the county has been taking steps in the various departments to know what those data points are. Because literally, we're 1.5 years or something into this woman's tenure, and she's like, we can't even have a executive workforce group until we have this consultant do something that we can do in the county. So just let's take some action.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the ombudsman recommendation letter, which we are here to approve. Or not.
Hi, everybody. We're going to try this one more time. This has been on the agenda a few times, and for various reasons, running out of time, tabling it. We haven't had a chance to get back to it. So I'm glad that we're all here today and can just look over the information. So to put it into a little bit of context for folks that haven't been around, this conversation started back in 2021. And essentially, there were members of the community, family members, as well as clients that were looking for an additional way to receive some assistance in addressing problems and issues and accessing services. They were advocating on behalf of their loved ones, family members themselves, and they were coming up against some traditional red tape that happens in a bureaucratic department as large as this is. And at one point, there was a conversation between the then chair of the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and the then Behavioral Health Director. And the position of ombudsman came up, and there was a discussion and an agreement verbally that the Behavioral Health Director would take a look at the position and look at designing a job description, and there was a responsiveness to the request from the board. What ended up happening, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm going to chalk it up to some miscommunication. When the Behavioral Health Director went before the Board of Supervisors to request some additional staffing positions during COVID because of the massive departure, retirement, resignation of staff and the shortage, the Behavioral Health Director needed to go to the supervisors and say, hey, I need 50+ new positions. And we were under the board, and I was not on the board at that time, but I'm a stakeholder. We were under the impression that the ombudsman would be one of those 50+ positions that would be requested by the Behavioral Health Director. The Behavioral Health Director came back and said, here's what we requested. And what ended up happening is it was a health navigator that was requested, and there wasn't an alignment with what we envisioned and what the department ended up doing. So a while ago, I'd say about 6 months ago, Emeritus Chair Michael Rodriguez created the ombudsman work group and asked me to chair it. And there were some folks that joined, Jennifer Morrison, Bertan Bhavnani, and he asked us to take a look at what an ombudsman is, what they do, put it in historical context. We came back with our report. Then we were asked to come back with some examples of where an ombudsman would be helpful. And we also reviewed the grievance process, which is what is a last resort for a lot of family members and clients who are trying to get results regarding some of the problems they're having. And we put that together. So the last meeting where Chair Emeritus Rodriguez was chairing, he asked me to put together a letter requesting the ombudsman position. And so that's what is before you today, along with the additional documentation that I've identified as exhibits. And so you can all read the letter. It's pretty straightforward. So this is coming before you today as an action item, and it is something that the work group is recommending to the BHAB to request of the Behavioral Health Department to establish an ombudsman to work independently with behavioral health clients and family members as a neutral party to help resolve issues. So we've had a lot of discussion about this. I don't know if individuals here want additional discussion, or if we're just able to go to the action item and vote it up or down. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And I did want to say thank you very, very much for all of your hard work, many hours, and to Ratan Nami, who is a revered member of the community. Nami was the director of NAMI and is now a member of NAMI, and also former chair and chair of the mental health board, which was before our Behavioral Health Advisory Board, and many other positions that he's held on our board. So I just want to say thank you to the both of you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's open it up for comments or questions before we go ahead and make a motion to approve. If there are any, go ahead, Claudia.
Thanks so much for putting the letter together and compiling all of the information. I just had a clarifying question. In the letter, it says that the role of the ombudsman is to resolve issues at the lowest level possible, and that wording just tripped me up, and I was wondering if you could clarify.
Sure. So when I took a deep dive into the world of ombudsman, and they exist, as you know, in educational settings, other healthcare settings, we have them at the larger state department settings. They exist in various mediation settings within the law. And a lot of what I saw consistently was that to utilize an ombudsman would be the starting point when there was something going wrong within the entity, as the individuals were trying to receive services or assistance in addressing their problems. And the reason we want to do that is we don't want to trigger the formal state grievance process, because when you do that, the state has up to 90 days to solve that problem. And we need problem solved in real time. And I want to clarify something that may have been misunderstood. Oh, I guess the last time I spoke on this, I talked about the fact that Director Billman and Chief Shipper do a tremendous amount of work assisting families and clients when large issues come up and they need assistance. They can pick up the phone and move chess pieces on the board. They can make things happen. So when I look at all of the things that are happening right now within the department, part of what I was motivated by was perhaps having something before it had to get to the behavioral health director or the adult services chief, that maybe there was a way that family members and clients could approach this individual for a variety of reasons, some of which might be less intimidating, some of which it would be able to be handled right then and there, because that ombudsman would be empowered by the senior folks to be able to do similar things. They may not, the thing about an ombudsman is that when they make a recommendation, it's not necessarily binding. So they can make a recommendation or they can make a referral, and that might get up to the behavioral health director or the division chief, who can sign off on it and say, okay, but the work's been done for them. In other words, they don't have to start from square one, even though they could communicate with their CAs or their case managers to get some background. I feel like this is a complementary position that would augment what Director Gilman and Chief Shipper do. So when we talk about lowest level, it's the starting point when you can't get what you're trying to get resolved at the clinic level or the facility level, or you're trying to get into a clinic or facility. And so this would be, that is the term that's used within the world of ombudsman. If it's a phrase that you don't like, we could perhaps, you can make a recommendation on what you want to change it to be, but that was the one that I chose to go with.
Yeah, if that's the lingo, then I'm comfortable with it. But otherwise, it sounds like at the local level, before a grievance is filed at a higher level at the state, or before complaints escalate to department heads. So maybe the lowest possible level is the most concise way of saying it. So thank you for explaining it. Sure.
Go ahead.
I'm curious, it sounds like they have to be very neutral and objective, and so how are they paid? I mean, it just seems like that's gonna stumble this up, right? And someone has to supervise them, someone has to pay them,
Right.
so how does it?
So here's the thing about being a work group. We don't have to figure that out. We're making a recommendation if we decide to the department. The department will receive the recommendation. They will take a look at what potentially could be feasible, because if we pass it on to them, they're going to have to look at the whole fiscal picture, and they're going to have to look at potential funding. Now, one of the things that have come up is, where should this position sit? Should it actually sit in BCBH? Should it sit at public health? Should it sit at county executive offices? Those particular things at the micro level will have to be fleshed out if this moves into consideration with the department and they want to move forward. So right now, those finer points, and this is not an excuse, but this is the process, don't have to be determined. It's kind of like TBD. And that doesn't mean that it's going to go the way that the board may vote. It doesn't mean that there's an easy solution, but we want the process to begin. We would like this to be under consideration. And I will also say, at a minimum, no matter what happens, I like creating historical records. I like creating paper trail so that people who come behind us can look at what was tried before and how that may or may not have panned out. So I like process. I'm kind of a process person. And so I think that there's additional value here that's kind of innate to what we're trying to do. But to answer your question, I'm not sure. I don't know, but we all have that concern. And I think that it's something that will have to be looked at. And I know through the world and channels of the advocacy work that I do, that there is some pushback from the executive office. I mean, there are people that aren't thrilled about this idea, but that's okay, because in advocacy, you still have to move forward, advocating on behalf of things that you believe in, even if it may not have an outcome that you want, because at the end of the day, you want to be on record, and that's important. So I can't answer those questions, but they would be questions that would be addressed later. I think that's the best that I can do, answer your question. Whether that actually answers your question or satisfies you, not really.
No, it just seems like they may think they already solved it with this help navigator, and you know, that's something they provided already. And so because we haven't addressed that, that it didn't meet the needs, because it just seems like.
Yeah, no, I hear you. So a help navigator is literally what the title is. They help you navigate the system. They help you work the maze, the process, the red tape, some of the hurdles and things, but they can only go so far. And then at that point, this gets to the earlier question, there needs to be a bit of another level where even the health navigator can't solve this problem. And I know for a fact from family members that health navigators haven't been able to solve some of these problems. In the past, we had something called transformational liaison. We had 2 of them, and they were doing things like that. They were jumping in and helping people navigate the system. They were doing some case management work, but then they would hit a wall and they couldn't get satisfaction for family members or loved ones or clients. And at that point, it just kind of stopped. And so what we're trying to say is, well, let's build in something else to take it further, and then extend that avenue of advocacy for people that are trying to get some satisfaction for their loved ones. But health navigator is a little bit different. And I will just say that we have MHS, we have mental health associates that do that. We're on, I know that Director Gilman's onboarding peers that will be doing some of that. So there are a lot of people who will be doing that, but it's a little bit different from the kind of advocacy to access to services that I'm talking about.
And thank you, Liz. Cheryl, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I was gonna ask the exact same questions that Diane did, but I was also gonna add on, who would hire this person. But as I'm looking at this, I understand what you're saying. I understand the position seems very important. I don't disagree with any of that. But we're being asked to recommend to BHAB that they create this. And so we are saying, well, that's what it says here, recommendation be to create the position. So if we're asking them to create it, then I guess we are asking them to fund it and hire it, et cetera, if they're creating the position. Is that not what that means?
We're asking the department,
Yeah.
not the BHAB.
No, I'm sorry,
That's
that's
what's requesting.
That's what I meant. If I didn't say that, I didn't. Thank you. That's what I mean. So we are asking the department to create this position, which to me would indicate they're gonna fund it, they're gonna hire it and supervise it. And if that's not what we really mean, then I guess I'm a little confused about that too. See, for my money, what I would see is maybe another alternative would be to be able to fund a nonprofit, for example, to hire this person somehow. And I get that they would be perhaps in the same role, but I guess that's my confusion as to how that works out.
It's understandable. And when we started the work group, that very idea came up. There were people who were saying they would like it not. Ideally, you want this to be an independent position, an independently funded position. We all would want that. And there was a discussion about perhaps having this position at a CEO level and have them do it But then there were some questions about conflict of interest. There were some questions about how do you determine which CBO. So the problem is, and this is just indicative of trying to find the appropriate placement for this position. And I guess I'm open, so I'm open to saying, can we look at this? Can we even have a conversation about this with the department, see where it goes? This is a letter to consider the recommendation of this position. And I think that it's worth a discussion at the next level with the department. And the department may say, you know what, we're gonna have to refer you somewhere else, or we can't do this. And right now with funding sources, it's like, well, we don't know. But I don't like to be deterred by stuff like that. I like to keep moving forward. And if it ends up that this doesn't come to fruition, well, I feel like I did my due diligence and exercised the task that was given to me by Chair Emeritus Rodriguez.
I just wanted to, if I may just jump in a bit. Usually what happens with board letters is the board letter goes to the department. Then it is sent to county council. It goes through a vetting process. And if it is approved through the various departments, and first of all, it has to be approved by the BHAB, then it eventually would go to the board of supervisors. So that would be the ultimate goal. And the board of supervisors would then, or someone along the line, might come back to us for edits, comments, questions like, how do you plan to, or how is this ombudsman position going to be financed? Who would be, to whom would they be accountable, so on and so forth. So this is just the beginning. This is just starting process. And so the first process, of course, would be to have it approved by the BHAB, and then Director Gilman, if it is approved, will take the letter forward. And then if it does need to go to the board of supervisors, if it's approved, you know, during your vetting process that I know, I think that's the way it's been in the past, then it would either, I guess we'd have to come back and address it to the board of supervisors.
Well, let me just quickly back up. That is the overall process, but it can't go to county council or anybody else unless there's additional information included from the department, because
That's what I'm saying, goes to Director Gilman.
no, I understand, but I'm just clarifying that for folks that may not be aware. So, and I understand that that's staff time. I understand that it's work. But what they would have to do essentially is say, what's the fiscal impact? Where would this money come from? What is this, an FTE? Is this a part-time position? You know, it would be looked at, and then what was ever just then that information will be passed on to county council on that. So it's not just this letter, there's additional analysis and data that accompanies it.
Go ahead.
Hello, thank you, Liz and Rhiannon, for this amazing research that you did. So I think my question is, and to be respectful to everybody, mostly, okay, so we put the letter together. So am I hearing, and I may be misunderstanding, am I hearing you say that if that we send a letter to the department, that we're leaving it in their hands to decide whether an ombudsman is needed or not? Is that what I heard? Is that what I heard? And if I did hear that, then I think that's not where, at least I thought we were moving, the direction that we were moving in with the ombudsman. I would think, at least I thought we already went down this research, and which is why we asked Dr. Johnson to submit the letter to our supervisor. So we already voted on, we need an ombudsman. So I'm a little confused why we're going back to the department to ask them if they think we need an ombudsman.
Well, and that's why I started with that historical context, because that interaction did happen. She agreed to develop a job description and take it to the board of supervisors to request the position. And then that did not happen, and they came back with a health navigator. So we were like, well, we don't need a health navigator. There are other people in the system that do health navigation. We would like an ombudsman to play this very specific role. So that's why I said that, because what we're doing now is kind of going back and revisiting what was initially started. And there was a lot of disappointment among individuals at that point, as I said, I was not on the board, when it didn't come through fruition, and so this over a period of time has come up again, and that's why the Chair Emeritus Rodriguez wanted to create a work group to take a look at it. You know, at this point, if somebody wants to take over the work that's being done here, I'm happy to hand it over, but I'll be very honest with you, we're done. So you guys can decide yay or nay. It's up to you. All these informed stakeholders can decide what they want to do in next steps. And I'm not sure, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure what next steps are. It might be a conversation with myself and with Tan and Director Gilman to talk about, well, let's take a look at this. It might be pulling in Barry Zimmerman. It might be a lot of things, but I'm not for always closing the door right away. And that's okay if other people want to do that. I'm as invested as I can possibly be in this, but it's up to you all to decide next steps.
Yeah, I don't want to take this over. I think you did an amazing job. I think I'm just agreeing with Cheryl that maybe some of the wording can be changed a little bit if we feel it's necessary.
Absolutely, and you should create that language and add it to the letter.
Okay.
Thanks, Liz. Okay, we have comment online from John B.
Oh, and Nancy.
Nancy, so sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm on my husband's computer because I'm out of town. Can you hear me?
Yes, we have your comment and then a comment from Chris, and then we'll go for both. Go ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to, and I'm maybe mistaken, but you know, this has a long history, this issue. And it was my understanding that this whole issue and the position and who was going to pay for it and all that has already been, actually the position of navigator was approved. It was not filled. It was approved by the Board of Supervisors because that was the letter that went to them along with a lot of other things. And when it came back to us, we thought it was going to be the ombudsman. It came back to us saying nurse navigator, or I don't even know if nurse was the right word, but a navigator. And then, you know, the board was sort of stunned because that wasn't really what we had asked for. And so I just wonder if there's, I think it's an okay thing to submit that letter and just ask about the ombudsman change that. The position is there, the money has been approved unless it's been withdrawn. But I remember Loretta Dennering saying nothing has been done because of this controversy, and the controversy's gone on for 2 years. So there's no navigator and there's no ombudsman. So we should decide. I think it would be helpful maybe to go ahead and submit that letter, and then we'd know probably we need both. And maybe there's a way to combine ombudsman with navigator. It's a different position, and I understand the nuances of the differences, but it may be helpful to review our positions that are already funded. If there was some of the concern was, well, who's going to pay for this? And if there's money already allocated to pay, it's been approved. So I don't know if my memory is faulty or if anybody else remembers that scenario. I don't know that it's important, but it kind of is. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy. Chris, do you want to wrap us up, and then let's see if we're going to, what we're going to do. Okay, go ahead.
I'll just, I just wanted to just say thank you for all the work that you've put into for months and months on end and meetings where we didn't get to it and we did. And thank you. It's a lot of hard work went into this. A couple things is, one, I see our role here as an advisory board to represent our districts and the people that are in our districts. And at least from my firsthand experience, you know, worked with a lot of families and individuals who would greatly benefit from an ombudsman position, which extends past the role of a client navigator, past the role of an MHA, past the role. It goes beyond, yes. So I feel like it's our duty to do what is best for the client, that the district we represent, and I feel that well, my own opinion is that this would be beneficial. And lastly, when it comes to the budgeting, I think that's the next step, and if we could look at all sorts of things like the cost effectiveness and what the cost of using Director Gilman's time or Dr. Schiffer's time is versus having this position and this as an available resource for the community that's able to navigate more than just the ECH system. And, so those are some thoughts, and I won't take up any more time, but thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Now, everyone's thoughts and input is important before we go to a vote. Elizabeth, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
I did. I'm gonna vote against this, and it's been very frustrating that we spent so much time on this, and I'm gonna give the reasons why I'm gonna vote against it. One, we know the county does not support this idea. The people involved in this have been told directly the county doesn't support this, so it could be more time spent on this. Two, the examples that are given really have other solutions. I can look at them. Some of them are people don't like the law, right? It's not like you're gonna now have somebody to tell the county to do what you want and then circumvent the law. And three, there is a nonprofit in this county to represent these interests. And again and again and again, I really encourage NAMI to do training with family members on communicating and partnering with people and how to navigate systems. So I personally do not believe there's any need for this. Thank you.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments, we're going to go to okay. All right, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right. I don't feel like I can vote on this yet. So we're voting on the letter. We're voting on sending the letter to the department to open up dialogue, correct, on the ombudsman issue. But maybe I'm wrong. Did I hear that the department would say yes or no? They think it's appropriate and it would be their decision? If I voted yes, would I be agreeing to that? Go ahead.
Yeah. All right, so my experience with board letters is the following. When the Behavioral Health Advisory Board drafts a board letter, the board letter it should be going to the Board of Supervisors via the department, through the department. The department, because we're a Behavioral Health Advisory Board and we represent the community, the department is not going to say yay or nay, because, we speak for community members. However, everything that we ask the Board of Supervisors to do, any requests that we have, must go through the departments and the process. Would you like to say something?
Yeah, correct. So the role of the advisory board is to advise the director and the board of supervisors. So I've seen it done both ways. I've seen where the council will prepare something and will submit it directly to the chair, going around all processes, and I think it sounds like what you're saying is we're pretty tied to the administrative manual and how that works, which means I wouldn't decide whether I'm going to carry it or not. I could give an opinion about it to the board of supervisors. But if you all pass a motion with a recommendation to the board of supervisors, that's part of your authority to do that. So I think what we're getting tripped up on is process, how it would get there. I don't have the authority to say, no, I'm not going to take, you guys voted and I'm not going to do that. I do have the authority to say, I don't like it or I don't agree with it, but I can't circumvent that.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Thank you. Okay, you're welcome. So right now, we're going to just approve this letter, the ombudsman letter, to go forward to the director, and then we will discuss with the director what the next steps are. And if it does go, through the process, we would have to, in my experience, I could be wrong, Nancy, please chime in, or Dan, anyone else, would have to be addressed to the Board of Supervisors. Any comment?
So I think what you just heard from Director Gilman is exactly the same thing, which is part of your role is to give recommendations to the board of supervisors. And, so you can do that, you can do that directly, or you can do it, you can make a recommendation to Director Gilman, have that dialogue you're talking about, and still have the ability to say to the board of supervisors, hey, we've had this dialogue with the department, it hasn't gone anywhere, or we haven't changed our minds, we're still in the same opinion, this is what we want to do. It's really your choice of which route you would like to take.
And I just want to clarify, that's why I addressed it to Director Gilman, because Savette Johnson had said, okay, let's develop a job description. And she said, I would go to the board and request the position. That didn't happen. So that's why I'm starting back with the department and not bypassing the department, because as Nancy pointed out, the money is there. The position was approved by the board of supervisors, but it was called a health navigator. So that's why we are where we are right now. And yeah, so that's the historical context. And I appreciate Director Gilman clarifying for everybody here. I think it's very important.
I would like to make a recommendation that we approve the letter and send it to the director.
Sorry, we have.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, go ahead,
I'll make that motion.
yes, all right. Can we have a second?
I'll second the motion, please.
Now, do we have any other comments or concerns before we go ahead and go to a vote? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Go ahead, Diane.
So with most public places, that it sounds like that this was requested before, it went through the process, it went through the Civil Service Commission, a job was created, and it was called a health navigator. Did it not have the job description that we wanted? Or what the board previously wanted?
Okay, I'm gonna let Liz answer that.
Well,
because
I'm gonna just real quickly, I believe the job description was for a health navigator. And we asked for the abuts, and they came out with a health navigator.
Nice and title.
Even though the director at the time said that they would work on the job description for the budget. So that's why I started this whole thing with, I'm not sure what the miscommunication was. I don't understand, because if you look at the excerpts I pulled from the minutes, there's even an exchange between then existing Chair Harris, I believe, and Director Johnson. So
That's the background, and
Yeah.
thank you, Liz. That is, and that's another reason why Liz and Richan addressed this letter to the director, because it's already been through, a process prior. So, was there another comment?
yes,
Yes, CJ, please.
I was going to ask, are we approving this exact letter, or are there any edits or anything that's ready to go?
Right now, we're approving, we have a motion on the floor to approve the letter as is. And if someone would like to make a motion that we don't approve the letter as is and that we do need edits, then we would have to, someone would have to take the lead on that, because as Liz mentioned, she's not going to go further with this process.
yes, I've been doing this for a while, and I feel like where we are now is where we are now. And if somebody would like to recommend language or change over the process, they're more than welcome to do so.
Okay, does that answer your questions? Yes. Okay. Oh, Cheryl, please.
I know we're prolonging this one, but I think it's important.
It is
that we're all on
important.
the same page if we
Yes.
can be.
Yes.
So I'm after hearing this discussion, which has been very helpful, really. And I know you've brought this up before, but we've never been able to really talk about it because time constraints, and so I apologize.
No, we're still in time.
But I'm understanding now that we're asking for the department then to, well, and maybe subsequently the board of supervisors to create this position, but I guess in the process of that, what I would also hear, and that's my asking for this clarification, that the department would then perhaps work with hearing, Director Gill has now heard this input that many of us have made, and would the department then be working with the board, our board, to look at different ways to actually create this position, where it wouldn't have to just be coming out of, and we've had other suggestions, and I know maybe they've gone through the too, but at this point, is that something that would happen before it would even go to the board of supervisors? Or could it?
You know what I really like is the idea of us meeting, and because what's not clear to me is what problem are we trying to fix? You know, and so if we were to meet with the ombudsman work group, or somehow if I could respond to this, you know, formally, to your point, so we have a response from the department. Because the way that it's written out is you're telling me that this has to go to the board of supervisors. That's the last sentence here, but I'd like to understand more, because this was a minute ago, and there were a lot of problems that you were trying to fix at the time. And so like, is the problem the 90-day time frame, or is it our grievance process isn't working, or so maybe we could do some tweaking to those processes. So I'd like to be able to work with the work group on it, but also to respect the fact that there's a problem. But let's isolate what problems we're fixing, and there might be multiple solutions, and it may include, more robust ombudsman services as we go forward. But I can't flush out, there's legal things, there's confidentiality. We've met with groups where we frequently talk about, it's the parents unhappy with what the kids are doing. Lots of those things. And so I don't want to put a position out there. Guys have all these expectations for all these things to get better, and they won't have the authority to make them better. So
I appreciate you making those comments. I think it's very important for everybody to understand that Rutan and I have been involved in advocacy for over 15 plus years in the county. And so we have very realistic expectations, but we also have concerns. We have certain things that we just don't feel are being properly addressed. You make an excellent point, but this was a couple of years ago, and at that time, the issue came up again, and we are revisiting it again. Nancy makes the point that it was already done, and then it just somehow didn't materialize the way it was supposed to. I think the work group would be open, definitely would welcome a conversation with you. Dialogue is great. We'd love to have that. We have open door policy. We've had many discussions. In particular, we've all discussed a lot of different things. So we would welcome that. I think that when I look at this, it's kind of like a jumping off point. And I can see why people might want more clarity and might want more specifics, but I also think that that's part of why I'm sending it to the department and not directly to the board. And I don't think in the letter I said to send it to the board of supervisors.
I didn't see that in the letter.
Yeah, no, it
says move forward with the recommendation of BHAB. So
yeah, I meant, but I'm sorry. So I meant move forward with recommendation for the department.
Okay.
Because the department had already said, we're going to do this, and we're going to create a job description. So I'm sorry if that was in. It's for the department, not for the board. So I think that, rather than admire down like this is in stone, this we can't change this, that there aren't other. My mind is, let's get started. This jumping off point. The board, whoever agrees, is saying we'd like to revisit this. We think you should consider this. I'm happy to sit down and talk to you about it and look at next steps, look at fiscal impacts, look at fundings, all that stuff. But as Nancy points out, the money has already been identified and is there. Now, you may say to me, well, Liz, we use that money for something else. But I don't think you can do that if it's already been designated by the board to be spent a certain way without getting permission or waivers. And so I think that all of that has to be discussed. So I'm open to additional conversation, but I'll be very frank with you, I can't revisit all of this. I'm running a nonprofit and I'm doing stakeholder work projects for BCBH. I'm done. But I'm happy to do the next step into dialogues. I know Richard will join me in that, and Jennifer can join us, and anybody else who wants to come in and sit down, I'm happy to do that with you. And I appreciate your offer to do that.
I should clarify, I know the patient navigator position they've been in recruitment for it. I don't know if it's been filled. So
Yeah, I don't think it has been.
All right, so I'm sorry, but we have run out of time. We can either table this for another month, or we can go ahead and go for a vote. Please feel free to vote yay or nay. Given the new idea of having a dialogue with Director Gilman and, whatever might come of that. But we have several agenda items, and it is now 3:24. And one of my commitments as the chairperson is to end on time at 3:30. So let's go ahead and go for a vote. Go ahead, Jennifer, and thank you again, Liz and Regina, for all of your hard work and efforts, and Director Gilman for your offer. Claudia Arman?
Yes.
Soledad Barragon?
Yes.
Kevin Tracy? Let's see, Genevieve Flores Faro? Cheryl Heitman?
Yes.
CJ Keeley?
Yes.
Nomi Maruko?
Yes.
Diane McKay?
Yes.
Jennifer Morrison? Yes. Dahlia Robkin?
Yes.
Elizabeth Stone?
No.
Krista Hayda?
Yes.
Liz Warren?
Yes.
Janice Gardner?
Yes.
Motion passes? All right, the
Sorry,
motion is
that was
passed.
yours.
No, not yours. No. You say motion passed. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for the lively discussion. That's why we're here. We want everyone to have a voice and to hear your thoughts and input. So appreciate it, and thank you, your county council. And Director Gilman as well. So next on our agenda are site visit resumption. And again, thank you very much, Jackie, for including for I don't know how many times, but we have the site visit, the 3 site visit documents. One is the site visit form that goes to the facility. One is the site visit I can't, I don't have it in front of it, but the site visit form that we fill out during our site visits. And then the other is procedures. I really hope that everyone, all the BHAB members, and of course, our friends and colleagues in the public will also take a look at these documents. And hopefully one of us will come back to the BHAB next month in August and say, I would like to conduct a site visit to any kind of facility. We primarily look at county facilities, county contracted facilities, or county facilities. And then we will move on our process of doing site visits, which is an important part of our work. So, yes, please.
I thought, was there site visit done at the Todd Road Jail? I saw it on the list, and then I never heard a report about it. Now
No.
that was just okay.
No, I think that is, actually, we were invited, I think, Chris Kaheda was going to lead that site visit.
There was an open house for that new health and
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
unit. And then I think originally it was to visit the TIMU, the therapeutic inmate management unit, which apparently we learned last week was in multiple places, not actually, right? That some people are in different places, so.
Yeah, I'm going, sorry, no, I'm done.
It was, yeah, in the same area, there's just different segments of the adjacent areas that are all related to continue. But I'll definitely follow up with that, and I'll include you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, I'm aware of individuals that are there and it's been an extraordinarily positive experience, like beyond what they even imagined. So that's interesting. I don't know. I don't think it's anecdotal. I think it's being experienced by multiple people. So I don't know, Scott Walker's still here.
He was.
You know, I see him, but the sheriff's, everybody.
Sorry.
Yay.
We can't really call him.
No, I know. I'm just.
Thank you for that comment, though. That's wonderful news when we hear about a program that has positive outcomes and that the participants are pleased with that. Thank you. Yes, okay. All right, so next we have new business presentation requests. If anyone has a presentation request, please send them to our Jackie at BHAB@thedurham.org and CC myself, Janice at panacea-ent.com with a brief description of the proposed presentation. For the August BHAB meeting, we have a presentation from Evalcor, which was a request of the BHAB. So we will be hearing from them. The following month, we will also be hearing from Chief Rada West, who will be giving a every other month substance use services report. So she will be on our agendas every other month, and we will be able to hear what is happening in that area of behavioral health services. Recommendation awards. If anyone has a recommendation, please send their recommendation request to that day as well. And CC myself, if you would be so kind, with a brief description of why the person is worthy of recommendation. All right, the last thing we have to go over are contracts. And thank you, Director Gilman and Jackie, for including the very interesting and comprehensive description of all of the contracts that were approved by the Board of Supervisors. That was extremely helpful and labor intensive, and we very, very, very much appreciate that. Thank you. And to the staff for creating it, because it's a lot of work, so.
Yeah, I just also wanted to commend whoever added the descriptive thing at the end. That's really helpful. I'm not sure what some of these actually are, these services, but it's a good starting point. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So with that, are there any public comments? We did not hear from very many people. I'm sorry, Scott, that we didn't have a chance to call on you to give us some information. Scott from COSS. But I hope that you can speak to us next month, and because you're a valued member of our community and we appreciate it. All right, are there any public comments from anyone in the room or from anyone online? If not, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. So thank you again, everyone, for your input, the discussion, all the hard work everyone has done, and we appreciate everyone's participation today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you for good job.
There you go.
You know,